Good evening and welcome to the January 17th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and broadcast by FCTV on cable channel 9. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. We have a full complement of commissioners tonight, so thank you all for your dedication. Just as a reminder for commenting, I'll call on each of you in turn so we don't speak over each other. Also, that all votes are done by roll call. So when I call your name, state your name and your vote, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct, and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. However, a positive determination means that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply and/or may require some conditions. Therefore, the project would require a notice of intent application. So as an applicant, you kind of want to hear a negative determination. And for the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing tonight, and so that you're not waiting unnecessarily, the following hearings are expected to be continued. Number 3, Tonsett Road, and number 24, Willis Lane. First up tonight is such request. A request for a continuance under notice of intent. 3, Tonsett Road Realty Trust, 3 Tonsett Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to repair an existing septic system. Ms. Bergeron. No?
I got it.
Jen? Okay.
Sorry about that. The applicant's requesting a continuance until January 24th.
So moved, Harlow Hawks.
Gladfelter second.
All right. We have a motion and multiple seconds to continue this until January 24th. Questions or comments? We're voting on the continuance. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until January 24th. Next up, again, a request for a continuance under notice of intent. Sarah Tirano Flores, Nutter, McLennan and Fish, LLP, 24 Willis Lane, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to reconstruct an existing licensed dock and to remove a timber wave break. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until January 31st.
So moved, Harlow Hawks.
Gladfelter second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till January 31st. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Harlow Hawks, aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until January 31st. Next up, request for determination of applicability. James and Donna Curry, 0 Great Bay Street, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct beach nourishment. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so moved.
Harlow Hawks, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks Eye.
Melissa,
Red Dog, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Douglas and Kristen Shearer, 30 Chappaquoit Road, West Falmouth, Mass. For permission to pump dry, fill, and abandon the existing cesspools and to install an IA septic system. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
Bird, so move.
Fellow Hawks second.
we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Questions or comments? Melissa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alyssa, the RDA, your staff report mentions that some tree removal has occurred in this area. Are they going to replant these trees or compensate for the mitigation?
It's a large property and we would have allowed them to be removed anyway without being replaced. The area these are going in, there's just some ornamentals there and it looked like a tree had some damage to it. So it's something that we genuinely could have approved without replacement to begin with. So I think throwing it in is okay on this one.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Anything else? All right, a motion and a second on the table is to accept staff's recommendation. We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks Eye.
Melissa,
Red Dog, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Kudos to the sharers for the IA system. All right, next up are requests for a hearing under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. All right, first up, 3 taunts that have been previously continued. Brings us to continued request for hearing under notice of intent. First up, Richard Von Turkovic, 459 Central Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct 2 additions and a covered porch, reconstruct the front entry and install mitigation plantings. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until February 21st.
So moved.
Bird,
Gladfelter.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until February 21st. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks Eye.
Melissa,
Sorry, Red Dog, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this hearing until February 21st. Next up, 24 Willis Lane has been previously continued. This night's getting longer and longer. Next up, Eric Forsgaard, 45 Owl's Nest Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to raise, R-A-Z-E, an existing dwelling, construct a new dwelling with a deck, patios, and a rinse station, and to replace the existing sewage disposal system. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering up to present his project. Hi, Raul.
Excellent. Mr. Lizardi, you're up, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant. If I could, Mr. Chairman, I would like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
So the project is a notice of intent application for a raise and rebuild of a single-family dwelling. The site is located in the southwest peninsula in Jenkins Pond, as shown on this USGS map. So this is the little peninsula, that's the site. The project consists of removing the existing dwelling that's located in the middle of that peninsula on a high elevation. The site, beginning from the street on Owl's Nest, slopes all the way up to the house, and then the site from around the house slopes all the way down to the edges of the pond. The current owner and applicant for this project purchased the property last summer. He did not know that the existing patio on the back of the house did not seem to have a permit with conservation. So I will touch on that a little further as I go with my presentation. So the project is intending to completely raise the existing house, keep the existing garage and shed, and keep the existing driveways in the current configurations. The new house will be slightly rotated to take advantage of the existing views of the pond in this direction. So we have a slight, like 20-degree rotation counterclockwise for the house. There will be a new septic system. It's a Title V septic system with a tank and a leaching field more than 100 feet away from the inland bank to Jenkins Pond. Currently, there is a cesspool located at this location, and there is an overflow cesspool in this location on the slopes down towards the pond. Those two cesspools will be abandoned and replaced with the new Title V septic system. This application was originally done so that there would be no increase in development in buffer zone B. That was calculated as existing development of 3,491 square feet. However, after the staff reviewed the project and the records in the conservation department, this existing raised patio seemed to have not received proper permitting through conservation. So when we presented the calculations for mitigation, this patio on the back, which amounted to 632 square feet, was counted as pre-existing development. That not being the case, the calculations for mitigation will be changed, will be revised, and the site will be required to provide mitigation calculation in the equivalence of 2 times that same number. So the 632 square foot of the old patio would amount to a requirement of 1,264 square feet of mitigation. But because we filed the project without knowing that this patio was not permitted, the current plan with you and in this notice of intent does not currently have proposed mitigation. We reviewed the project and the patio situation with the homeowner and the applicant for this project, and he agrees to plant the 1,264 square feet of mitigation that would be required, that is required, based on the finding that that patio does not have proper permitting through conservation. Even with that patio not being permitted, the proposed project is completely within the buffer zone B, so it is permissible according to the regulations, so long as we have the area for the mitigation. The mitigation, there are 2 areas that the applicant is looking into planting with natives. One area is on the this corner down here close by the pond. This is an area that currently is cleared, and there is a little wooden dock. It's an old wooden dock. Staff did not find any permits for it. Homeowner is willing to remove that structure, but they are also thinking of properly permitting a dock through a different application. But this would be an area that is suitable for about half of the required mitigation. The other half of mitigation that would be required, the homeowner is willing to remove some of these ivy beds that are on the property. If I show a picture of what that really looks like. So the sites along the edges of the lawn, there's some expansion of English ivy. And those who went to the site would notice that the ivy is just sprawling through the entire site, crawling up the trees. The homeowner did took it upon himself to start cutting the ivy vines crawling up the trees. So those vines are slowly dying away, but there is still plenty of ivy beds on the property. So along the side of the house or the side yard, in this planting bed, if we took a strip of about 6 foot wide by 100 foot long, that will take care of the second 632 square feet of mitigation planting that would be required. So that's the applicant's intent for complying with mitigation requirements. We understand that a revised plan would be required for that mitigation planting to be properly conditioned. The other improvements that the project is proposing is introducing dry wells for roof runoff. The site currently does not have any dry wells. All the roof runoff goes to downspouts and discharges on to the surface. So we are proposing 4 dry wells for roof runoff. There is a detail on the plan for also proposing a trench drain for the patios, and that trench drain will discharge the water into those dry wells as well. So there's improvement in hard surfaces and also for roof runoff. The other improvement, as I mentioned earlier, will be a Title V septic system completely outside of the buffer zone. The applicant understands that there is a DEP forthcoming requirement that enhanced nitrogen removal would be enforced in a lot of properties. This one is one of those properties. In conversation with the health agent, at the moment what we're doing is increasing the drop in elevations of the invert from the tank to the D-box so that in the future, the homeowner can intercept that pipe with a denitrifying component for the system. But the septic system would otherwise not change, not with a new leaching field or a new preceding septic tank. That's the presentation at the moment, and I'll turn it over for any questions.
Thanks, Raul. Jen,
No questions, Raul. We're just gonna need the plan and then go back out and check the area for your mitigation. That's all. But thank you.
Ms. Bergeron.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments, Betsy.
I have no questions. Thanks, Jamie. And
All right.
Raul.
Courtney.
No questions.
Okay. I have no questions, but Jen, a clarification. Are we gonna need to continue this for that revised plan?
We should, just so we can go out and check the areas of mitigation, make sure they're, I mean, I know Raul showed us pictures. We just want to make sure that it's not under existing tree canopy or anything like that. Unless Alyssa, you feel comfortable with the areas, you were on this site, if you feel comfortable with the areas that he showed, the cleared area, little dock that you and I talked about in that ivy area.
I have photos of the area by the dock. I don't have a clear vision of it, except that it's probably been a cleared area for a long time, and that's where they hang out by the water. The ivy, I don't know how the board feels about that. Maybe they could put something in between the ivy that they're removing and the, you know, the new plants and the ivy that's still on the bank, because that's just going to creep right back in. So I don't really know what methodology exists to maintain that. I mean, it would have to be maintained, of course, but
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I
So-
think it would just be prudent, even just 1 week, to just, if Raul can get us a plan, we can run out there and just take a look at the areas. Make sure they're suitable for mitigation.
Okay. All right. Kevin,
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Maury,
No questions. Thank you.
Melissa,
Am I the only one with questions? I'm sorry, Raul. Hi. Hey, so when I was out there, the area that you suggested that they should plant some mitigation in down by the dock. I'm glad you suggested that because that was a really glaring, clear spot that probably had been once natural and now cleared out. But wondering, when you're looking at the dock to the, let's see, I guess it's to the east of the dock, it looks like there's sort of a little jetty in the water. Like somebody had accumulated some rocks and built some kind of little jetty there. I'm not quite sure what that is, but it probably shouldn't be there. And then from the same location, if you look to the west of the dock, there's also some timbered steps going down to Little Beach. Actually, the jetty is sort of to the east of a little beach that's to the east of the dock, and the timbered steps are to the west of the jetty, or of what we'll call the dock, and going down to a little beach there. I think maybe those should probably be removed. They also look like safety hazards too. They're in pretty rough shape. Your thoughts on those, Raul?
So if I could share my screen, I have a picture
yes, sir.
which I think it's what Melissa is talking about. I don't have a picture from the water
Yeah. Okay.
inland, so
You
I
can see the steps.
don't know exactly about a jetty. I don't know if there's stones in the water that were at some point in the past kind of gather and kind of piled up. I don't know the specifics on that.
Yeah,
But
they're
this,
just, if I may, they're just to the, I guess looking at it, just basically just to the right of that bench that's to the right of where your circle is.
yeah, I don't know about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
So the circle I have is the wooden pier
Mhm.
that exists, and I know that on this section,
Yeah.
there is a number of timber in this
Mhm.
location, but they also serve somewhat like a retaining wall.
Yeah.
I think if we remove them, it could compromise the stability of this side of the property, so I wouldn't necessarily propose to remove them. One of the things that we could do is just let it be, and with time, it may rot away and just becomes part of the soil. But I think if we were to proactively remove that, something should be put back in place, and it becomes more of a project than it is that if we just keep it as it is. There is a little beach at that location, so that little timber that's holding some dirt um, doesn't affect anything at the moment. And I'm afraid if we do remove it, then it could have the potential of some erosion. The items in the water, I don't know. I don't know if there's piles of stone in the water. But touching a little bit back on the mitigation, for those who went to the site is very wooded. There are trees all over the place. So the mitigation planting, probably no matter where we choose, unless we put them in the middle of the yard, they're gonna have to be shade tolerant because they're likely to be underneath some sort of shading from all the trees. There's a lot of mature trees on site. So we could select some specific areas. There's plenty of area to make up the mitigation requirements. It's just that I don't know we can purposely put them outside of underneath some shading. Thanks.
Okay. Well, interesting thoughts about the steps down. Thank you. Perhaps people noticed too on the photo that there was also a fire pit there that's being actively used as a fire pit. My guess is if we're going to put some mitigation in down there, that fire pit shouldn't be there anymore. And you did mention that the site is very wooded. It is, and it was evidently also once much more wooded because when you go just beyond where you have on the map, there's the stone walkway from the now being dismantled patio. down to the coastal bank. And when you follow that little walkway down to the coastal bank, it's pretty obvious that there's some fairly large trees that have been removed throughout history. I mean, I'm not saying, obviously it's obvious that your clients did not do this, but there's some big holes basically in a row that would have blocked a view at one point of the water that looked like they had stumps in them up until a few years ago. So yeah, your clients probably need to be mindful of pruning and trimming and taking out larger trees to open up views. But that's really all I have for now. I have a lot of
All
notes on the site, but it's a pretty area. That road could use some correction to it, shall we say. I almost left half my underbody there. But okay, thanks, Raul.
Steve,
Thank you. I don't have anything to add.
okay. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat regarding this project.
All right. Raul, do you have a request for us?
Yes, I would request continuance for a week, which makes it
24th, Raul.
the 24th. Thank you.
Raul,
So-
can you get that plan to us, at least a digital copy by Friday for where you want to put the mitigation?
yes.
So we can work with it? Thanks.
Like a motion to continue this hearing until January 24th.
Heard second.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table to continue this to 124 for the purposes of establishing some areas for mitigation. We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Hi, Todd guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until January 24th. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Night, Raul.
Night, Raul.
All right. Next up are hearings under an enforcement order. Kevin and Christina Doniger, 59 Shorewood Drive, East Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted construction of a patio. Jen,
So the board heard this back in 2002. I don't know if the board remembers, this was the woman, the resident that it took multiple hearings to get her to appear. The board issued an enforcement order requiring the patio to be removed by a certain date and then to start initiating fines. So we had open dialogue with the homeowner. We did not institute the fines as directed by the board because we thought we could get her to remove the patio without having to do that. And I was wrong. And so we contacted council to assist us with this. And council instructed us to rehold the hearing, the enforcement hearing, reissue the enforcement order, and then issue the fine. And then once that fine is issued and once it, depending on if the resident pays the fine or not, then council will be able to step in and bring the matter to district court. I made that call. I thought I could work with the applicant and get her to remove that patio. And I was wrong.
good
So-
deed goes unpunished.
Yep, so we've been trying to contact her and we have just been unresponsive. So
Well,
the only way to get council involved is to hold this hearing, reissue the enforcement order as we did back in 2022. And then bring the matter before the courts. There's a fire pit on the patio now as well.
Excellent.
So I just want to apologize to the board. Again, I was just trying to basically try to work with the homeowner to do this without resorting to daily fines. Yeah.
Well, I hope anybody watching realizes, we do try to work with people, and I'd rather have people, have that reputation than otherwise. We're not looking to hurt anybody. We're just trying to keep everything in line. So it's certainly not your fault. It's none of us' fault. It's just, it's just
Well,
sad that you try to work with the homeowners and, they don't want to play along. So here we are.
No, I'd
So
just like to formally apologize to the board. So
it's accepted but unnecessary.
thank you, Jamie.
Courtney, your hand gonna fall off or what?
No, it's just, I had a question. Is there a set amount of the fine, or is there a range that we can choose?
Well, I would just go with the $50 a day fine that we initially, that's what I talked to council about, is do the initial $50 a day fine until the patio is removed, and then Maura has something to work with.
We're not looking to make money on it. We're just trying to
No, I'm
enforce
just,
the regulations. So, Melissa,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing for the record, Jen, I believe you just misspoke because you said we saw this in 2002, but we saw it in 2022. So just so if anyone's watching,
2022.
yeah, they know that it was 2022. And so the fines have only been accruing since 2022, not since 2002. And yeah, I just find it a little egregious that this person just never called back after you folks had made some contact. I think it's a good idea to move forward with the fine and put it into town council's hand. Because it's also, I mean, I was out there looking at the patio itself, and even in the pictures that we have, I could pull it up myself in a couple of hours. I mean, it's not like you need to hire a contractor to remove it. So, I mean, this has been festering for nearly 2 years. It's time to get it, move it.
I'll make a motion to reissue the enforcement order as Jen has already prepared it.
Just
Carl,
change
on
the date.
second.
we have a motion and a second to issue an enforcement order or reissue the enforcement order. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting to issue the enforcement order. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carl Hawks, aye.
Melissa,
Hi, Tug Eye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an enforcement order. Next up is other business. Request from 26 Loomis Lane to post the bond. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Steve Haddad. Steve, I'm going to try to promote you one more time. We have a request by Steve Haddad, who is contractor at 26 Loomis Lane. If you remember correctly, this was to, the project was to build a garage and also takes care of some outstanding enforcement matters. The order of condition was written with the language that the staff would not be able to sign off on the building permit until all of the vegetation, including all the trees, were planted. So they've done most of the shrub planting. They believe there's 8 outstanding trees. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve.
Correct.
Thank you. And so the property owner, because it's January, would like to move forward on the garage and is requesting this board allow them to move forward by placing a bond with the town for the additional 8 trees that are I think that's the last remaining trees that need to be installed.
Correct.
Dave, can you turn on your video, please?
Easier said than done.
Hey, if they gotta look at me, they gotta look at you, all right?
I get it.
Steve, it would be down on the bottom left. If you're looking at Zoom, you have mutes, and then you have something that says video, maybe over there.
Start video.
Oh, there we are.
You got me?
Yep.
Beautiful.
All
So
right.
a couple of things. The Ferrers have done an extensive replanting, both for remediation and compliance, if you will. And as you recall, there was a request by this board to get 12 American hollies and 8 additional trees of the applicant's choice. So we planted everything, but for whatever reason, winter was fast approaching, and they never got around to the remaining 8 trees. So the idea was, if we could start the project now before the summer residents showed up, the only way to do that is to post a bond for the 8 remaining trees. But should they wait till they plant the trees, you know, I'm suggesting to start the project sooner than later, just so that they can avoid disrupting summertime. That's kind of where we're at. So the plan is to plant the 8 trees during construction.
All right. Jen, you said the rest of the mitigation has been done, and you guys seen it?
We have not seen it yet, but Steve has assured me, correct?
All been done.
All been done. Because
And
the
the
board
hollies?
did issue the amended to take out, I think, 43 of shrubs that were going to be planted in the area of the Rosa rugosa, but then we found the old order that the Rosa rugosa was required for the rebatment, so that's out.
Okay. Courtney?
Yes, do we have an estimates for the cost of this work?
It was
Yes.
sent to you with $7,800. I'm sorry, $5,200.
And that's, is that just one estimate, or is there more than one?
That's
It
one
provided-
that's Clover planted all the trees to date, so they're gonna continue planting them, and as soon as this became aware of it, we asked them for another estimate for the remaining 8 trees.
And who was the estimate from?
Well, Clover, they're buying it from Cape Cod Wholesale, or from down Yarmouth. They're buying the trees, and Clover Landscape is actually planting the trees.
Okay, so the estimate is from Clover and Landscape, saying that it's $5,200 or whatever.
Correct.
I would suggest the bond should be double that.
Well, I think what I read was 1.5 times.
Well, I just want to make sure there's enough money to cover it.
Courtney, Jen has a standard way that she does it.
Yeah, Courtney,
Okay.
there's a standard way, and then we do factor in a buffer in there. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure that in the
I-
end, you know, let's say Clover can't do the work and they have to get somebody else, and the nearest guy that can do it is $15,000. Now what?
I'm hearing you. Not that the board cares, the Ferrers have spent in excess of $150,000 to date getting this project to where it's at. So the last 15 is, the last 5,000 is not going to be an issue.
I mean, if the work gets, we're talking about what, 3 or 4 months?
Well, as soon as the weather allows us to, I would think that it would happen in April.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure there's enough money in the bond that's covered that the work can be done. If, for example, Clover can't do it in a timely fashion, you have to get somebody else. and the lowest bid you can get is X dollars, and that doesn't cover the bond, then we have an issue.
Well,
Or if
Court-
it
Following
doesn't get
protocol.
done, there's no certificate of compliance. Steve has a
Okay, I'm just
incentive to get
raising
it
the
done.
issue. You know, if everybody's comfortable, I'm comfortable. I just made my point, that's all.
It's a good point. I'm confident that Clover will take care of it.
Mr. Chairman, may I clarify something?
Please.
Courtney, when someone places a bond, so let's say Steve places a bond or the Ferris place a bond for, what'd you say, it's 52, we go 7,500 when we add the buffer, and I think it's like 25%, Courtney, that we'll add to that total cost of the bond. The Ferris have to submit a cash bond to the town. The town does then not go and pay a contractor to install the trees. The Ferris need to have
Correct.
Clover come and plant the trees. Whatever their deal with Clover is, I'm assuming they're going to have to pay Clover to do that. And then once the trees are planted, we release the bond to the entity that posted the bond. So if the Ferris come and post the bond, we return the bond to the Ferris. If Mr. Haddad comes and posts the bond on their behalf, we return the bond to Mr. Haddad. We don't pay that, we
No,
don't
I
pay the
understand.
contractor.
Jen, I
Don't
understand. how-
interrupt.
Jen,
Okay,
I understand how it works. I
okay,
just want to make sure that
Yep.
if everything goes to hell in a handbasket, there's enough money there to cover the work being done. If you're comfortable with the system you have, I've made my comment, case closed, let's move on.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'll make a
All right.
motion to allow the applicant to post the bond.
Carla Hawk second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to allow the application as submitted. Any other questions or comments? We're voting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Melissa,
Right, Todd,
Steve.
No,
It is unanimous. We have accepted the application. Thank you, Mr. Haddad.
Thank you, board.
good, Steve.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Next up, vote amended. I'm not sure this is right. Vote amended order of conditions?
Oops,
Alyssa?
typo.
Yeah, okay. Vote orders of conditions. First up, David Greer and Stephanie Quay, 63 Little Island Road, Falmouth, Mass.
That was the invasive species removal. They're planting native vegetation, right? And then are we incorporating a vista in that, Alyssa?
The Vista was already approved, but now it's actually on a survey.
Okay, perfect. The only comments that I have is no clearing around the boulder. The boulder's not gonna die if there's invasives on it, so. And I think the area around the boulder where they wanted to clear was outside of their Vista corridor. So, and then we wanted them to tighten the radius around the
Tree.
trees.
5.
Were they oaks?
The cedars.
Cedars,
Cedars.
that's the one, cedars. And tighten the radius around the cedars. They wanted a 10-foot radius around each cedar, and that's a bit excessive.
This was the project that had all the notes on it that weren't notes. I have here question note number 5 and note number 6. So it was
He has to
reduced.
reissue a plan that makes it clear that there are how many? 8, 9 directions, and that's separate from the notes on the plan.
Okay, so which notes did you have, flagged, Melissa?
Number 5, which says brush mow a small swath, quote unquote, of competing vegetation approximately 10 feet wide, all the way around the 2 cedars and around the boulder.
So that's what we were just talking
So
about.
that's what we
not
were just
gonna be-
talking about was number 5. And then number 6 is north of the boulder, flush, cut, and remove a couple small oak saplings immediately behind the boulder. And that was the expanded vista thing, which wasn't gonna
Yeah, we
float
just
either.
said, no,
That was-
there's
that was the
not
other
gonna be,
boulder.
yeah, there's not gonna be any clearing around the boulder.
Yeah. But there's actually 2 boulders. There's a boulder near the cedars that they were gonna clear around as well.
That's the boulder I'm talking about, not the boulder.
There's only one boulder.
Oh, well,
Well,
it's the boulder.
there's actually a boulder near the deck, but
Oh, yeah.
the boulder in the vegetation, there's only that one boulder, and that's the one we're talking about.
They just
I'll
refer
make
to
it-
it twice.
Yeah, I'll
There's
make it clear.
Yeah.
So it's numbers
Anything
5 and
else?
6.
They also need to add what species they're planting. I neglected to notice that.
Yeah,
Didn't he say he was gonna have the plant list done by this week for us?
he
Um,
actually did, or you had requested it, we just haven't received it, but we'll work with, who did this, Tom? Is this Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work with Tom.
I had asked if he could replace the cherry tree that he's taking down. That's outside of their Vista corridor, or right inside their Vista corridor.
Okay, plus cherry. Need species list.
All right, anything else? Alyssa?
There was a note about existing Leland cypresses on site. Someone had mentioned that since those are there, it might be nice for those to come down too. I don't know if that was Maury or.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, what are you thinking?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Third, second.
All
That's
right, we have a-
what,
Jen?
I just have one clarification. Maury, when we removed the Leland cypress, are we replacing those with cedars or just
Cedars.
removing them?
Cedars, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We had mentioned that we had discussed that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Anything else? Melissa?
we've discussed, I hope that the conservation agents will approve the plant list.
Yes.
Yes,
Just said
okay,
that. Okay,
sorry.
anything else? All right, we're voting to issue an order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Melissa,
Right, guy.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up, James Mouchel, 4 Eldridge Drive, North Falmouth, Mass. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is a raise and rebuild. I think we're modifying.
Garage elevation.
Erosion rebuild. We have mitigation. There's restoration, correct, Alyssa?
Yes,
There's
for
restoration required. There's mitigation required. And there's 4 outstanding trees from a previous order that need to go back. Additional trees from previous order.
Are we Eldridge Drive?
We're on
Yeah.
Eldridge Drive.
Yes.
They need a new plan because they have the garage elevation slab at 20.5 feet would put it 5 feet below the driveway.
we did receive a revised plan. They've fixed that. They've
Okay.
also changed the erosion control to straw bales. I did not see a difference in the septic, there was something about making it nitro and not a fast system. I believe it still says fast. So I'll have to look into that one a little bit more, and if not, condition it. And the trees will need to be relocated. They're sort of just plopped on the plan to handle the outstanding issues, but we can work with them to put them in better locations.
This is the one where
Thank
Wilkinson may be coming in with a coastal bank invasive species removal, so
that might all be part of.
yeah, it all might be part of that. We're gonna wait and see.
Oh, are we not ready to do this yet then? Because their plan isn't.
We're doing what's applied for.
Yeah, well,
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? All right, we're voting to issue an order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Melissa,
hot dog eye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make one comment?
Sure.
Mr. Shearer, our meeting started at 7 and your RDA was approved. So if you can hear me, your RDA was approved. And the meeting started at 7, so you missed your RDA hearing. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
All righty then. Next up, Falmouth Resort Owner LLC, 350 Quaker Road, Falmouth, Mass. 10.
This was to deal with the grease trap that collapsed. I think the only concern with the board had was the use of that flowable fill to fill the tanks,
As opposed to concrete.
as opposed to just collapsing them and filling them with sand.
You can't collapse them.
Yeah, they're too big.
Okay. Okay.
Full
So
fill.
I
We
know,
agreed
Maury, you would,
Flowable fill was
Flowable
good.
fill.
okay.
I have a comment though. I have a friend who actually, this is a history lesson.
Uh-oh.
People were asking when that trap was put in. That trap was actually put in the mid-70s because my friend's first job as a plumber was to put that trap in. And it was right when he got out of the Air Force in the 70s. So that's almost a historical trap.
Yep.
Who knew grease traps could be historical?
Well, you learn
We're gonna
something new every
memorialize it on
day.
a plaque?
When Mr. Hill and Mr. Battles owned it.
Wow.
Was it a big
Some real
hotel
history.
then?
Not as big, no.
It's a beautiful
Right.
location.
Terrible. Melissa,
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, when they rehabilitate the dunes after doing everything over there, I had asked that they put some plugs in to close up the little haphazard
path.
walkway, the path that's, I mean, bah humbug, but people can walk on the beach. It's not the path that the service workers use. It's just a path through the dunes that shouldn't be there. Thanks.
anything else?
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions or comments? We're voting to issue the order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Melissa,
Hot dog eye.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up, William and Melissa McKim, trustees, Nina's Marina Realty Trust, 306 Scranton Ave, Falmouth, Mass. Jen.
That was for the dredging. And at first, you know, staff was concerned because they had entitled it improvement dredging versus maintenance dredging, but then Raul clarified that some of that area had been dredged. They're just asking to go 1 foot deeper than it had been dredged. So it is slight improvement dredging. But it's tucked up next to the bulkhead.
And there's a time of year restriction on that.
Yes, there
Yes.
was.
Yeah,
And
okay.
shellfish were going to be donated, correct?
Yeah. I'd like to double the shellfish donation. It said 5,000 seed. 10,000 seed won't break the bank. Since he's going
10,000
down.
seeds, like $500.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, he offered 5,000 seeds, so let's make him offer 10,000 seeds since he's going deeper than before.
I don't know that that's consistent with
He's going deeper.
other projects.
The requirement, right?
He's doing this on state land and it's private. Branching. Do we have regulations regarding how much seed is donated? I mean, this is,
No, it's basically the board's discretion.
yeah, I mean, they want to dredge 1, 2, 3 dock areas. I mean, we don't get too many people requesting to do 3 areas. It's usually just 1 area. And actually, if they hadn't built out that bulkhead and filled it in with land, they wouldn't maybe necessarily need to be doing this. I don't know. If you folks are fine with 5,000, a donation of 5,000 seed, whatever, but it would be nice to have 10,000.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
Am I putting the double
That
seed?
has,
With it,
that has to be clarified.
Yeah.
Am I
What's up
putting
with
the
that?
double seed in? I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable. It's not that much money and they are dredging the three areas. So I think you would be justified in requiring it.
yeah, I have no problem with adding the seed.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah.
All right. We have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. If there's nothing else, we're voting to issue the order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks Eye.
Melissa,
Right on, guy.
Steve.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up. Grazine trustee, 174 Penzance Road Realty Trust, 174 Penzance Road, Falmouth, Mass. Jen,
Couple of things on this one. The main project is the wall on the existing seawall. It comprises of a plunge type pool, mitigation, and then reconfiguring the dock to bring it into some sort of compliance. Did we just lose Alyssa?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So, couple of things with that is, we'll start with the dock. To bring it into compliance, some sort of compliance, they were proposing that 80-foot extra square foot dock. Let's bring that down to 60, and it's a wash with what they removed.
Yep.
60 square foot float.
yeah, I thought we covered that pretty well.
Yeah.
They agreed to it.
We need to put some type of language in there that when they start to build that wall on top of that existing wall, if the existing wall isn't strong enough, structurally sound enough, they're gonna have to come back for an amendment. They can't just take the existing wall out and then rebuild some big solid, you know.
Right.
which they should have probably looked at the structural integrity of the existing wall. Prior to filing. So we'll add language in that,
Yeah.
we need to know about the existing wall.
So
Yeah, just to say it
deter-
for future projects, that should be a requirement, just like we do in a house that's gonna get a second floor or what have you.
Okay.
That structural piece. No, I'm just saying, it's not a problem, but, let's look for that next time, that it's ahead of time rather than,
Yeah, I
know.
think this is the first time we've seen something like this, Jamie, and we just didn't think about it. And then when
I-
you were
I've just-
talking about it, we were like, oh, we should have probably thought about that.
no, and they should have in there, put your hand down, I'll call on everybody when I'm ready. They should have offered that, knowing that, they're adding substantially to that. If they were adding one layer, it'd be one thing, but they're adding pretty significantly to it. All right. Melissa?
It's just gonna offer some language. It's predetermine the structural integrity of the existing wall before adding new
Yeah.
structure.
So Alyssa, we went over when you blanked out.
Everybody froze.
Yeah. And then about we're gonna bring that extra float that they wanted from 80 to 60, and then we're gonna add some language in that they need some sort of determination on the structural integrity of the wall prior to starting the new wall. And then I don't think there was anything in the mitigation. Did they move the mitigation to be away from the? Okay, perfect. So the mitigation was fine.
I have something about remove kayak. Maybe someone saw a kayak
Yeah.
in the, okay.
There's a blue kayak in the marsh to the south. Abandoned, might be on the neighbor's property, but I
Okay.
don't think so. It's in the part of the marsh that their new wall is gonna compromise their neighbor's driveway if anytime
Okay.
any storm comes through.
And a note about no additional fill.
Yeah, where they dumped stuff. Just remove
No,
the
when
dumps.
they add the wall, not the.
Or for
fill
the
behind it.
wall.
Oh,
And wasn't the mitigation by the plunge pool to be moved?
That's what didn't they move that already, Alyssa?
it did.
Oh, okay, I just might not have maybe I have the wrong plan.
Do we know, Alyssa, can you confirm that they moved the mitigation from the area?
Yes, I believe they moved it from that area north by where the garden's being removed.
You're right, they did. Okay.
Anything else? All right.
Do we
I'll
have
make a-
anything? Oh, excuse me. Do we have anything about when people do stuff that's obviously going to damage neighboring land? I mean, the wall that they extend around the corner and around their garden enclosure, if there's, moontide storm or something, it's going to automatically start eroding their neighbor's property. But their neighbor has a little wall that's basically the same size as the one they have. If they were that concerned, why not work with the neighbor and reinforce and raise their wall too, instead of wrapping yours and destroying their property? I mean, do we have any verbiage or any precedent on something like this?
Well, usually, that's why we have a butter notification. So if the abutters didn't respond, usually that's where that would come up.
Okay. I guess I didn't respond. Thanks.
Make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Anything else? All right, we're voting to issue the order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carla Hawk's eye.
Melissa,
Aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Next up, Philip and Deborah Graham, 53 Toby Lane, Falmouth, Mass. Yeah.
This is the garage. Garage, proposed paved driveway, proposed. They're doing some restoration work. And they're doing some mitigation work. And I have, what is the deepest bamboo, what is a deep root bamboo barrier? So kind of went through that. And then I have need 3 additional trees. So I know they have 2 proposed trees, and I guess the board's looking for 3 additional trees to that for a total of 5 trees.
Yes, I think they were acknowledging the 2 required per mitigation requirements.
Yep.
And we can make a note that staff can help verify their location in the field.
So it's 5 trees total, not 2.
Is this the one with the broken tree?
There's 2 trees on the plan, and I have a note that says need 3 trees. So are we asking for
3
5?
more,
Or are we
because
asking
there
for
was a,
3?
is this where there was a broken tree? And I said something about you're only gonna offer 2. Before I said anything, he said Betsy's gonna ask for 1 more for the
3.
mitigation. So it was 2 plus 3.
Yeah.
There's a dead tree being removed. I think
Yeah,
someone
that's
wanted
2.
that replaced.
Dead tree removed, he was gonna place 2 for that, and then 1 for the mitigation. And then there were 2 that were already on the plan, right?
And he's
Or
removing the
not.
arborvitae too, so, or arborvitae, or however you say it.
We can go through the notes again.
We'll go through the notes. So
Verified.
the 2 on the plan, Betsy, I think you said he needed 1 more. So I think it was a total of 3.
He said it before I even asked the question.
So I think we'll go back through we'll look at the hearing again and figure out exactly how many trees.
Okay,
It's either
Are we
going
gonna
to be
protect the
3
hollies?
or 5.
I think it was 3,
It was
and
three.
we're gonna
3.
protect the hollies.
Maury
All
has
right.
her hand.
And then
Well-
there was that small mitigation area that was inside the patio that they had to move,
Yep.
and that was all I had.
I had one note. As noted in the staff report, there was an area of some tree, shrub trimming off of the back deck. Right now, I don't think there's a need for restoration because I think it'll all regenerate the root layer and the shrubs are still there. But that may need to happen in the future. I don't know if we want to put a clause, a special condition just to keep that open-ended based on staff review of the property as it grows back.
And to stop cutting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll make a note.
All right, anything else?
Oh, there's an existing diseased and leaning toward the house pine tree to be removed. Is that the one, Betsy, that you were talking about?
yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Any other questions, comments, input? All right, we're voting to issue the order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawks eye.
Melissa,
Hot dog guy.
Steve.
Pat and I,
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Thank you. Before we have the last motion, happy birthday, Kevin. Happy belated birthday, Betsy.
Happy birthday, Kevin and Betsy.
Thank you.
Couple
I'll do you the
Capricorns, huh?
favor of not singing to you.
And in case anyone was wondering, we've discussed it. And you're wondering, we're in our 30s.
is that the
Still.
day you were born?
I think it's
December,
year. No.
December 30, is that was it?
No. And we weren't born in the 1930s.
That's my birthday, 12/30, so I'm jumping in the crowd.
Oh,
are
all right.
Oh,
Happy
belated,
birthday,
belated
Steve.
birthday.
New Year's baby. Woo.
Tax
Almost.
baby,
You
as my
miss
dad
anybody
would
else?
say.
Oh,
All right. Last motion. Who wants it?
make a motion to adjourn Harlow Hawks.
Hot dog
Bird
second.
Gladfelter,
All right.
aye.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye.
Brian, I.
Carlo Hawks eye.
Right, guy.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We
Woo-hoo.
are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
I'll
you.
talk
Night,
for now.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night,
Betsy, I'm gonna
everybody.
call
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Got it.